Hey everybody, it's Casey here. It's here on Flying Tackle. Today I'm going to show you how to tie a really cool little steelhead bug. Something with a lot of movement, a lot of color contrast in there, and a bit of flash just to grab their attention. Something that I think you'd have a lot of success with if you give it a try. So hang out, we'll tie a fly together, show you how to make it all work, and yeah, hope you like this one. Enjoy. Alright, so let's tie this thing. So you'll see in the jaws of my vise, I have one of these Senyo's articulated shank. In this instance, it happens to be a 40 millimeter or 1 5/8 inch, color black. From here, I've got some fluorescent shell pink UTC ultra thread in a 140 size. Just a nice heavy thread, something that's not going to break when I'm pulling on it. So this is a shank fly. I'm going to tie in some Fireline with a regular Octopus hook. I'll show you in a second, but I'm just going to lay down a really good base of thread here just to prevent that hook from pulling free when we hook a big steelhead. So laid down a thread base. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Berkeley Fireline in 30 pound, and I've cut 2 strands of it, roughly, well, let's say 6-8 inches long each, in that kind of ballpark. And I'm going to take just a regular Gamakatsu Octopus hook. Use any type of hook that you like, but for these trailers on a shank style fly, I find it's quite important that you want to have that upturned eye. And just reason being, if you use a straight eye, your hook's going to sit cockeyed. It's not going to sit with the point parallel to the shank. It's going to sit really funny. So because this is just 30 pound, it's not so much the breaking strength, it's just that I want it to be nice and stiff to keep that hook up. So that's why I'm going to use 2 strands here. So I'm going to feed, it always seems easier to do on camera than it actually is. I'm going to feed the 2 strands through the eye of the hook. I'm going to create a loop. Sorry, again, difficult to do in front of the camera sometimes. And then I'm going to feed them back through. Sorry, gotta move it. So I fed it back through, creating a loop. We'll tighten those up, and that's going to secure everything in place. And as you can see, that hook sits properly because of that upturned eye. I like to tie these with the hook point up. So, I mean, you can do it hook point down if you like. Personal preference, I just like to tie them hook point up. So on these shanks, you've got your upturned eye, and then you've got this loop on the back to tie into the jaws. I'm gonna kind of try and split that loop on the back with the 2 ends. And I'm gonna give myself about a 3/4 inch tag in between the end of the loop and my hook eye. And we're going to fasten this in place. Lots of wraps of thread here to hold everything nice and tight. And I'm also just going to make a couple of loose wraps here. And we're going to split this through the back eye, or feed it through the eye, sorry. And turn it back just in case we, well, obviously hope to hook a monster and keep that from pulling free. I'll trim these off at different lengths, kind of on an angle there, just to reduce the bulk at the end of the tie-in point. Again, lots of thread to hold that in place, and you can glue it if you like, just for the sake of time. For this video, I'm not going to. I don't want to wait for it to dry. So yeah, I've got from the end of the loop there to the eye of the hook about 3/4 of an inch, maybe slightly less. So we've got this thread laid down. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of Haireline ice dub in fluorescent shell pink, and I'm just going to dub a little ball at the end of the hook here. Just a little ice dub egg at the back. A little bit of sparkle, just a little bit of color. Nothing super special about it. From there, I've got a little bit of Fish Hunter Schlappen in a fluorescent hot pink UV. And I'm just going to take some of the longer fibers at the end here. You can have some of the fluff mixed in. And I'm just going to tie this in at the top. This is kind of like a little hot spot in the fly, kind of. It's going to contrast kind of all the other colors that we're tying in there and just kind of pop at the back of the fly. So I've tied that in. My next step is I'm going to grab some Lagartun flat braid in holographic silver, or sorry, silver holo. I like to try and tie in as much as I can on the bottom of the shank on a hook like this. Just reason being is it's going to help keel the fly. So the top is the top, the bottom is the bottom. Obviously, if it, I mean, does the fish care if it rolls over? Realistically, it's probably not going to stop it from biting, but it just bothers me. So try and keep as much of that weight on the bottom of the shank as we can. And we'll wrap that forward for the rear of our body. And why I do this as opposed to like dubbing it or, you know, like a rayon chenille or something like that, is it just doesn't absorb any water, so it keeps the fly light when it's time to cast it, and also it just reduces bulk. Realistically, you could probably use tying thread and it wouldn't make any difference. But I really like that holographic silver. It just gives it a nice shine, helps it pop, and just helps grab their attention, I think, anyway. So from here, I'm going to take a piece of silver UTC ultra wire, in this case brassy, or else even medium if you like. Again, I'm going to tie it to the bottom of the shank. And secure that in place. Next, I'm going to take some Fish Hunter Marabou by Nature's Spirit, and in this case it's going to be fluorescent steelhead orange. If you wanted to make this is just the regular Marabou. If you wanted to make this a larger fly, by all means grab the spay length. So I've got my feather here. The spay length, same material, just longer fibers to create a bigger fly. So for this pattern, I don't want too much bulk, so what I'm going to do, other than keep bumping the camera, is I'm going to strip one side of the stem. We'll discard that material that we've stripped off. And we're going to tie this in by the tip. We'll secure that in place with our thread and snip that off. And then the last part for this step in the fly, I'm going to take some 10mm UV Blob Fritz flips in two-tone sunburst. This is from the Alchemists Tying range. Very, very nice stuff. We're going to strip some of the material off of the core, leaving us a nice clean tie-in point here. So a couple of things going on the fly right now. Secure that down, and then I'm just going to tie it so that it make sure that it overlaps that silver holographic braid so that there's no gap in there. And then I'm going to tie them in, or I'm going to wind them in the opposite order that I tied the materials in. So the first thing is going to be this Fritz. Just pull the Marabou out of the way as we go. And you don't have to tie this, you know, super compact. It doesn't have to be crazy dense or anything like that. You can have a little bit of space in between the wraps. It's all right. 2, 3. You just want to apply it or wind it with tension. 4. 5 wraps there, and we'll lock that in place. Trim that flush. A couple of extra wraps or 2 just to hold that tight. And now I'm going to palmer this piece of Marabou, and it's going to act as a spay hackle for this fly. So I'm just going to manipulate the fibers so that they're all sort of facing the same way, facing back towards the hook. And we're just going to wind this forward. 1, 2, 3, oops. 4 wraps. Right to the end of that Fritz. Cut that stem off. Now, we're going to take that silver wire and we're going to counter wrap our Marabou. And why I'm going to do this is it sucks if you hook a fish and you get a tooth that'll cut that stem, which can happen more towards the back, more likely than the front, because obviously the butt of the stem is a lot thicker, but this just ensures that your fly is going to last you a lot longer when you're out fishing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just wiggle my way through the wraps with the wire, and I'm also going to try and pull this Marabou around and manipulate it a little bit so I don't clump it all up. So we're wrapping this through. And secure that wire into place. And then just break it off. Next thing I'm going to use, again, Fish Hunter Marabou, just a regular length and fluorescent light pink UV. I'm going to take that. I'm going to use the whole feather. I'm not going to strip one side. Again, I'm just going to pull this down. Tie it in from the tip. Secure that in, and we'll just palmer a couple of wraps just at the front here. So by taking a lighter color like this and wrapping it over a bright color, I find it just kind of subdues things just a little bit, but it also adds some contrast to the fly. Again, just manipulate those fibers so that they don't all bunch up. A couple of wraps just like that. Alright, we're almost there, almost ready to take this one fishing. For a wing, I'm going to take some Haireline Extra Select Craft Fur in fluorescent orange. And we're just going to drape this over the back, And basically what I'm aiming for is this just to be slightly longer than sticking out slightly past the bend of the hook. This will also help keel the fly. If it's sinking in the water column, this will kind of act like a little bit of a parachute, and again, keep it wing side up. From there, I'm going to take a little bit of Cascade Krinkle Mirror Flash in hot orange. I'm going to take 2 strands and double them up, creating 4 total. I'm just going to lay that over the top of that wing. Just a little loose loop to lock that in place. Cinch that down. And we're going to trim that craft fur off as flush as we possibly can. And create our thread head. A couple of strays there. Quick whip finish. And there you have it. Little dab of glue on those thread wraps there. Just ready to go fishing.